Welcome to Women, Men, and Relationships. I'm JJ Flazanes, your host. Thank you for downloading today's show. The time has come. It is now available for you to get for free if you are interested in the Invisible Fitness Formula, 5 Secrets to Release Weight and End Body Shame book. You can go to jjflazanes.com/book. Again, jjflazanes.com/book if you'd like your free copy of the Invisible Fitness Formula, 5 Secrets to Release Weight and End Body Shame. Today's show is an interview of me by Mr. Lou Diamond on his show called Thrive Loud. And Lou and I have a great conversation. It's actually 2 shows put into one. We first had a conversation about all the things that I do in an invisible fitness, mind, body, soul kind of way. And then he was intrigued by astrology. And so we talked about having him and having me do another show where I would read his astrology for his listeners. And then we ended up doing both of those, and then he put them on the same show. So it's a little bit longer format than you're used to here because it's really 2 shows combined into one. And I left it on for those of you that have done your chart, those of you that have done your charts at my events. Definitely, I would say it's a great thing to have handy so that in case you share some of the same planets that he does, when I'm doing his reading at the end, you can hear how it may be applying to you as well. All right. So I want you to check out Thrive Loud with Lou Diamond. He's a business coach. And for those of you that want to start a business or grow a business or have a business, he's definitely somebody for you to check out and follow and subscribe to his show, Thrive Loud. So I hope you enjoy today's show.
It's time to take an inside look at those that are taking their lives, their businesses, and their passions to the next level. Get ready to thrive loud with Lou Diamond.
Hey, Thrive Loud listeners, Lou Diamond here. We have an amazing episode today with JJ Flazanes. We have a great interview where she talks about all the amazing things that she does from a spiritual world, from the physical, personal training that she does, and a lot of the things and how she lives each and every day in her life and why she is an inspiring person to so many. And then in the show, we discussed a little bit about one of her passions and expertise, which is her ability to do astrological readings. And in the interview, we discussed that we would come back and eventually have her do a reading. And we then went back and did that. So we tacked that on at the end of the interview. So listen to the interview with JJ, and then at the end, check out her reading of me. Pretty interesting. For those that listen to me, those that know me very well, I think you'll truly appreciate all the things that she came up with. Truly enjoy this great episode with JJ Flazanes. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Thrive Loud with Lou Diamond, connecting you to the most inspiring and amazing people that are thriving each and every day. Today on Thrive Loud, we bring you an empowerment strategist and host of the Fit to Love podcast show. She is on a mission to transform the meaning of the word fitness to include not just the state of a person's physical body, but also the emotional, mental, and spiritual factors which affect a person's overall well-being. She's a friend and fan of the Thrive Loud family and someone that you are just going to be inspired by. Thrive Loud listeners, JJ Flazanes. JJ, how are you today?
Lou, I'm fabulous. Thank you for having me.
You are reaching to us from, we're doing the cross-continental, coast-to-coast conversation where you are over in California. I am calling you on a very rainy day here in the Northeast in New York. And you've got a pretty interesting thing going on with all the things that you do. And I could jump in and tell everyone about it, but it's way better when we get someone like you to actually share a little bit of your story and your journey. So if you could, for the Thrive Loud fans, could you share a little bit of how you got into what you're doing? And we'll dive deeper into what your focus is all about, because I think it's pretty cool stuff. And I know our Thrive Loud audience will love it. Sound like a plan?
Yeah, it's a long story. So I'm going to wrap it real fast in a nice tight bow and give you sort of the highlights. I've been a personal trainer for 20 years. And in that time, I have learned science. And growing up as a kid that was all into singing and dancing and acting and being, expressionistic, so to speak, and being out there in the world, talking and communicating and connecting and sharing my feelings and my thoughts and my ideas, I didn't think I was that smart, actually. I got good grades in school, but I wasn't the brainiac math and science geek. And part of me felt like I was missing out on that. And so it wasn't until I actually got into personal training and I started to learn the sciences of the body that I could put form to it. And when I can see it mechanically, it became more real and easier to learn and apply. And then I got really excited. And then I realized I was super smart. so pat on the back there. No, but seriously, I learned a lot of science and I had to like take a step back and go, wow, I really get this. And I really started to uncover and unravel what my brain's what my capabilities were in that science realm. I was always good in the emotional realm and communication realm, but not necessarily science. So here we are, I'm a personal trainer. I'm actually learning science and I'm helping people apply the science to their body through exercise and diet and learning biochemistry and physiology and anatomy and physics. And when I get a problem that I can't solve, I'm the person that says, well, if I use these tools and they don't work on you, let me go find some more tools because I believe I can solve pretty much any problem, or at least take another position where the problem isn't a problem anymore. So that is sort of how I deepened my experience and my learning and my passion about the holistic perspective on the mind, body, soul connection, which is what I do now. And I started out branding my business Invisible Fitness, and Invisible Fitness really at the time was because I looked at the body. I was in my early 20s. I was director of education of New York Sports Club. I had people looking at me like, what the heck do you know? You are young. You're not a bodybuilder. Like, I'm going to listen to you. And I said, let me ask you a few questions. When I started into the body sciences, like imagine a bunch of like meathead guys, no disrespect to you meathead guys if you're smart, sitting at
none taken. Anyway.
Sitting at, well, I don't mean to be, I have so many personal trainer friends who are very smart and the people that I learned from were very smart. But if you looked at them, you would think, bodybuilder, juicer, not that smart. But there are those people out there. But I was in a room full of guys who had been training or athletes, and they just assumed because they were big muscular guys that they knew something. And science isn't because you know it. And just because you work out, just because you're athletic, just because you lost 100 pounds doesn't mean you know anything about science and how to apply it to different circumstances. So I just asked a few very simple, basic questions about the body, and then no one had any answers. And I quickly established that there was room to grow here. And so from that point on, Invisible Fitness really was, when I look at a body, I look at joints, I look at what you're doing to your joints because you have the ability to wear them down or to protect them every step you take. And why I care so much about joints at the time, I'm proactive. I look ahead. So we have that going for me. And then, years later, 20 years later, now I'm looking at spirituality and I'm looking at your life purpose and your astrology and how that all intertwines into having true body transformation, whether it be weight loss or great health or overcoming illness and disease. So that's how I got to be doing what I'm doing today.
So I like the whole theme here, and you've packaged it together. And I think it is interesting, right? We were told, and old wise men or old wise women would all say, everything in moderation, right? And I used to joke about those that would work out too much, or whether it be physically in the gym lifting weights, or those that would be running 100-mile marathons and stuff like that, and not taking care of other parts of their body. Or even those that would go on these crazy diets because they would be extreme in that component of their life because they knew how much the importance of what you put into your body is what makes your whole body as a whole. So now I guess the question I have is, you're balancing out all the different aspects of this. When you assess and look and strategize with the people that you work with, do you kind of do everything in moderation, so to speak, of all the levels of quote unquote fitness as you want to define it, to basically figure out what's the best plan or area that particular client of yours needs work on?
Of course, you have to take it bit by bit because most people can't handle the barrage of information I have to throw at you about all the different aspects of your life. They're like, I don't know what to do with all that. You just told me to change everything about my life, and no, thank you. So no, I take it. I try to meet people where they are first and foremost, and one of the great things about podcasting for me, when I started the Fit to Love podcast show, was 6 days a week. And it covered all the different areas in those different 6 days of the week. And then after 2 seasons and 350 shows, I wasn't feeling like I had gotten the response I wanted. I didn't have the leverage that I wanted to have. And so I split them into 6 different days with different themes. So my newest, most popular show with the biggest tribe that is right there with me is called Spirit, Purpose, and Energy. So those people really showed me where my entry point is of what I want to attract. I want to work with the people, and the best people to work with me are the ones who have either done so many programs and are frustrated, but they intuitively know that they're missing something. They feel like, I've tried everything. It just doesn't work long term. There's got to be something I'm missing. That, or the people who understand that everything's connected, who practice law of attraction, who are attracted to astrology and numerology and things unseen. Those are the people who best work with me. Now, if I'm working with someone, and I still have a lot of clients who come to me for weight loss only, and they may or may not be open to the other things, I will do what I can with them until I can't do any more. And that's where it's up to the person and their consciousness level to assess and realize that things outside of their comfort zone may be what actually sabotages their success long term. So if someone's unwilling to walk a path that I'm going to lead them down, then I'm not going to work with them. But I try to be and meet people where they are as best I can and give them bite-sized things to work with so that it's not overwhelming.
So I'm going to play along with you here and go in a certain direction. And that is that I'll say that earlier in my life, I'd fit into trying to be a little bit more fit and not necessarily be mentally fit or spiritually fit. And as I've gotten older, I think I have more of an appreciation, and it doesn't feel so woo-wooey to me when I hear all of these different mental or spiritual factors to put into place. So to jump into that theme, Let's take me, for example, all right? I want to play along with you here and talk about what you mentioned briefly about numerology and astrology and all those components that you actually help really understand and work with and how that relates to the individual. We can play around here. I'm willing to be a participant in this. Help understand the work that you do. And if you want to use me as a guinea pig, I'm open to it because I've been fascinated by a lot of this stuff of late because I've been reading a lot, catching up on it and hearing about it, but never actually dealing with someone who has an expertise or focuses on this area too much. So that sound like a possible willingness to play along with me here?
Of course.
Okay. So help me understand a little bit when you look at someone from their spiritual factors and explain how numerology and astrology kind of fit into the mix.
Well, I'm not an expert in numerology. I do use it. I use more tarot and sort of cards and things like that, but I'm not an expert in that either. If anything, I'm
not an expert. I pretend to be one on a podcast show. That's okay.
I'm being honest because I want to go over what I am really good at, and that's astrology. I could talk all day long about astrology, but not in the traditional sense of reading your chart as if I'm giving you predictions about your future. How I use astrology is very different. I'm just taking the planets at your birth, and I'm taking about 6 of the different planets that represent different energies in your life. So how you deal with emotion, your personality, your lessons in this lifetime. So that soul astrology piece, how you deal with communication. Yep. I take those pieces and then I relate them to you in the world, you and your business, you and your clients, you and your customers, you and your spouse, you and your kids, you in general, in terms of how you see the world, interpret the world that may be different from someone else, and how the roadblocks come up. So astrology is really, I should really brand a whole new kind of astrology because I don't know that everyone else is doing this. They're just looking at a chart, they're reading it, they're giving you lots of information, and I don't know if it's so personalized to your exact life purpose and relationships as much as I like to put it. And health. I mean, for crying out loud, I'm doing astrological health assessments now because there are some signs react differently to exercise and to how you think about these new self-care habits. So let's take you as an example. So you're a Virgo. That's all I know about you. I don't know any of the other planets. I did not do your chart. But as a Virgo, I will tell you, so Virgo is an earth sign, and earth signs are about stability. Earth signs are about concrete proof. They're about, and the other earth signs would be Taurus and Capricorn. And they're each different. Virgo's right in the middle. You're like right in the middle. So you have 7 or 6 signs before you whose personality traits, good and bad, you have, because every sign sign evolves into the next sign and takes the good and bad with them. So you're right in the middle, and you're often called the virgin. I would also call you the perfectionistic. Virgos tend to want to do things the right way. So they find themselves wanting to follow something step by step, the way they're told. They want to get approval. They're doing it right. And sometimes get a little too caught up in doing it right. That would be the downside. Another downside would be in not trusting or getting outside your comfort. I mean, Virgos really don't like comfort zones. Or like comfort zones and don't want to be pushed outside of them because it doesn't make sense. It feels too risky. Virgos are very positive compared to Capricorns and even Tauruses. So I would say you're the most positive of the 3 earth signs, generally speaking. There are some OCD qualities about Virgos that can manifest. It doesn't have to be your stuff, although sometimes it is. People who are very ultra neat and like things to be in a certain order. It could be in the way you process stuff. It could be in the way that you want things done, like literally in the right way. Like you're a rule follower and you don't like things, and you don't like when people don't follow the rules, and it just bothers you because it feels wrong. And so there's a line in the sand sometimes about absolute rights and absolute wrongs. Virgo, when in certain other placements, are stubborn, very, very stubborn, and do not change. And I could say this about all earth signs, but Virgos specifically, especially in your moon sign, Virgos generally don't change unless, like, you have to manifest something that forces you to change. But the fun thing is you're conscious of it. You'll say, oh yeah, I understand that. Oh, I get that concept, but you don't do anything about it. You don't actually do it because you are so habitual in nature that you have your pattern and your habit and your schedule and the way that you do things. And it's really hard to break that unless you have other planets that are in fire signs or air or water signs.
All right.
So
I'm going to put the pause button for just a second and say, with all this information that you have, how do you utilize this information in helping to work with the clients that you work with? Because I think it's interesting. Is it to set a baseline? Because some of the things you said actually do relate to what I am, and some of them don't, but that's, without knowing too much about it. What I've always wanted to know, and I bet our Thrive Loud listeners would as well, look, we get that based on what the world and what the universe was like at the time that you came into the planet, some of that component affects who you are. But it doesn't affect everything that you are. So how do you balance these different spiritual or astrological factors into your work?
Okay, so let's take relationships for a second. So in my chart, my Venus is in Aries. Aries, the first of the signs. Aries is the pioneer. They're usually a little bit arrogant. They're usually very full of energy. They usually like to get things done. They are the least developed signs. They are called the infant for that reason. And the rest of my chart is very what I call third stage, all of the most developed planets in each one of the elements. When I was dated a guy years ago, and he and I broke up, and then we kind of got back together, and I noticed something really interesting about myself. There was a period of time where I was seriously impatient I needed an answer. Just tell me. Yeah, it drove me nuts. I'm like, okay, yes, we're together, or no, we're not. Just tell me. I don't care which one it is. Like, I cared more about the answer than I did about giving me an answer versus what the answer was. And it took me a while to actually figure out, because I kept thinking, what is wrong with you? You're so gray and flexible in other areas. Why in this area are you so impatient? And I looked at my chart and saw that my Venus was in Aries. And that right there is a classic Aries move where there's two choices, yes or no, right or wrong, left or right, good or bad. Like, it's that simplistic. And so I went, oh, okay. So it gives you information to work with. So if this shows up for you in your relationships, it's great for you to understand and know about yourself, because it gives you tools in which to either accept and adjust, accept and explain, or find how to balance with your partner or somebody else so they understand how you think, and you better understand that there's not something wrong with you. That's just how you're built. And it's not an excuse for bad behavior. It just means that your first impulse might be this. And then the second after that You get to choose how you interpret that information. What stories you tell, what you do about it is your responsibility. But that first impulse might be something energetically that just you live with. And knowing that at least validates you. So that's in a relationship situation. Now, in an exercise situation, let's see, what's the most rebellious of the signs? Okay, so let me take Sagittarians. Sagittarians need to understand why they're doing something. And if they don't understand why, they're not going to do it. And if someone says, you should do this because I said so, they literally will do the opposite just to spite you, because it's acting as if, no, I'm not going to just listen to you because I'm not on board yet. I want to be on board. So just explain to me why. And then if I agree with you, I am happy to do it. But when you don't understand who you're talking to and you have a Sag in your life and they just seem not compliant, you're going to get really frustrated. So you need to learn how to communicate and have reasons for why you're suggesting things. So that's how, for me, working with someone who doesn't want to or who won't take responsibility for either what they're eating or how they're exercising, those are important characteristics. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say they're important characteristics to understand. And I guess if you wanted to translate it to any relationship, having that knowledge and understanding it, whether for managing the people that work for you or work with you or your partners in whatever way, you could actually see that while it's not all encompassing, certain in the sense that everyone falls into those exact characteristics, having an understanding of it might enable you to either coach, lead, or communicate with that person in a way that might be different than another type of person who has a different set. So that's a very helpful, it's almost like a helpful baseline to understand where things are, which brings me to the question. There are people, I'm sure, that you've coached and looked at these different factors, but they might not have fit into a lot of those descriptions. How often does that happen versus not?
Well, astrology is just one tool. Right. I'm using love languages. I'm using, their belief systems. I'm using their birth order. I'm using their everything. I'm just taking everything from you and I'm putting it in a big mix and I'm saying, okay, how does this all connect or align? And I've had people who, that's how like the Virgo moon, anyone with a Virgo moon, has I've had so many clients with Virgo moons who I've just learned through 20 years of trying to help them in 10 million different ways that this is who they are. And they're going to manifest some big thing. And sometimes it's going to be a heart attack and sometimes it's going to be cancer. And that's the way they're going to learn. And through that work, I've learned not to take it personally because there's nothing else I can do because I've literally tried everything. So at this point, this becomes about their comfort zone. So when looking at, yes, some of these things fit. But again, like I said, I only know that you're a Virgo. If I knew what your moon is, I could tell you a lot more that was probably more specific. But nonetheless, whether it fits or not, whether someone believes it or not, sometimes I just use it and I don't tell you because it's about my ability to communicate in a way that you understand. It's about you being able to hear and get what you need in the way that you're going to receive it. And I use these tools to figure out the best way to do that.
So here's the question that I love asking all the Thrive Loud guests, and I'm very curious to see where this goes. You're a superb fit. You're in very good shape for those Thrive Loud listeners. We'll show pictures. She's always in shape, and she's always very physically fit, and obviously she's also mentally fit, balancing this out, and she's helping so many people, and she's got a successful podcast show and a great strategist, and the phone is ringing in the background. This would only happen. It was picked up. We'll pause from there. With all of these things that you have going on, my question to you is, when you personally have trouble thriving, who or what practice do you turn to get back on the thriving track?
So I've done so much work and I love work that I do that can actually really change me. And I've recently come into some work that I'm sharing it at my next live event, because when I find something that floors me and opens me up in a way that after 20 years of doing this, I haven't been before, I have to share it and help others get there. So it just depends on what the issue is. Let me just go over the tools that I have used that work really well. I'm not a big proponent of just regular talk therapy. I think it's a waste of time. I think it's a waste of time for the reason that 12% of your mind is conscious and 88% of your mind is unconscious or subconscious. And so talk therapy is really only accessing that 12%. Well, that's a really small percentage of your behavioral methods and habits and patterns and belief systems that you can't even access. So I'm a big one on EMDR, which is eye movement desensitizing reestablishment. That is a therapy for trauma. So anyone that has PTSD, which by the way, We all have PTSD. So anyone finds that they get triggered, like if you get triggered by things and talking about it and understanding it doesn't help the level of trigger that you get, go find someone who does EMDR, because that will help desensitize the trigger. That would be the first kind of therapy. Hypnosis is another great tool to help really reprogram that subconscious, that 88% of your brain. I do a lot of spiritual work with people. So I do believe in the therapeutic process. I just want to make sure that it comes out of my body on a cellular level, not just in my head. So if you're an air sign, someone who loves to think and talk and think about concepts, like you'll love that. But the likelihood is you're disconnected from your body. So your pains and your triggers and traumas live in your body. So we need a way to integrate that, which is kind of why I do the work I do now, is because nobody else offers that. Nobody's integrating it on these levels. The next, I look at my astrology. Definitely. I look at my life balance. I look at what I'm eating or what I'm drinking, or if I'm doing self-care the way that I want to be doing it. Am I getting enough sleep? Where am I hormonally? Am I balanced? Am I getting enough nutrients? Am I playing? Am I happy? And I use law of attraction for that. Do I feel community? So it's the assessment. And then when I assess, what do you need now? Then that's sort of where I go, okay, I need help with this.
So I'm going to follow up this question with one I've never done before, because I don't know this. You're always physically active, and it sounds like your brain is always mentally active. What does JJ Flizanes do to turn everything off? What is her veg moment that nobody else knows about? Like a little special hidden secret that, she does only onto herself, which is not involving all the wonderful things you just ran through about helping you physically get where you are, understanding your mental state, something that just turns it all off and almost seems lighthearted and relaxing and silly for you.
Salsa dancing.
Oh, okay. Tell me more about this.
So I've been salsa dancing. I've been a dancer since I was 3, but I learned salsa and I heard Latin music. I'm going to credit CNC Music Factory for that when I was in New York, when I lived in New York, and I heard them for the first time in 1997 or 96, 97. And I remember hearing that, and I literally stopped in my tracks and went, what is this music? I was so turned on by the music. Like, oh my gosh, I love this. And then not that is salsa, because it's not, but it's Latin. And I went from that to taking a salsa class, and I took a bunch before I left New York and moved to California. And then I took a bunch when I got here and ended up dating a few salsa instructors, became a salsa instructor, competed. So I'm in the world. I haven't been doing it as regularly as I would like to, but salsa dancing, really, I want to do a workshop just on using dance to connect people in a new way, because it has so many lessons within it. For women, how to follow and to let go of control. For men, how to lead, how to do nonverbal cues with with everything from music to the way that you move a person, the connection with the person. Anyway, I just think it's so fabulous, but because it's so between the music and the body movements, there's no room to think. And especially as a woman on a salsa dance floor, you can't think, because you're being led. I am completely surrendered to who is leading me, because I don't know what you're doing. I don't know where you're going. And it's not for me to know. I'm just supposed to follow you.
It's great stuff. By the way, you'll have heard a previous lesson before you from an episode with Lisa Betts-Lacroix, who is a former actress and a competitive dancer, who took up dance and actually does exactly what you described, where she actually coaches people through dance and talks about the power of it, because it is the great movement, and you couldn't have hit the nail on the head more so. But that is great that is your turn off the brain moment. And I like that expression about that. So JJ, aside from doing the deep dive, thank God I'll find out what my moon is when I was born, and you'll have to have that information and do a deeper dive on Lou Diamond, which will be a follow-up episode, I hope.
Absolutely. Did you hear that I did Strickland's? Did you hear that episode?
Yeah, and I did, and it was a little scary actually, because how much of it was accurate, and almost how actually what you did, which I remembered specifically, and for the Thrive Out listeners, we're referring to Strickland Bonner and Doug Sandler, of those guys, the nice guys in the business. You did the whole piece on Strickland, specifically on how he relates to his work partner in Doug. And I thought that was spectacular, that component of how they can get along together, which was really interesting. So, yes, maybe that'll be a follow-up episode for Thrive Loud, and we'll have some fun with it.
That'll be fun.
I'm game for that.
Good.
JJ, let's do all the admin stuff here. Give me all the places people can find you, all the websites, podcasts, links, places you want to send them. We can list it all in the show notes, but it comes better straight from you.
Well, you can find everything at jjflizanes.com. That's jjflizanes.com. Literally everything. My events are there. All my podcast shows are there. That's under jjflizanes.com/shows. So just go to the tab that says shows, and you can find all of my many podcasts, which we keep adding to, and the events that are coming up. The one is coming up in September, the next big step, and there's one in January called Releasing What Weighs You Down, and then just everything else you could possibly want. You can get a free copy of my book, the latest book called The Invisible Fitness Formula, 5 Secrets to Release Weight and End Body Shame. And that is also at jjflizanes.com/gift. But you could just go to, there's a bar there. It says free tools and resources. So just jjflizanes.com will take care of everything.
And give the date again for that September promotion so we could put it out there because that's coming up real soon.
September 20th through the 23rd in Los Angeles, called The Next Big Step. It's about breaking through the next level for you and in relationships, money, business, happiness, definitely physical and weight related and aging related. So it's really like, where in your life are you stopping yourself from going to where you think you can have a better life?
Awesome. I got 2 more questions for you here. We're going to finish off here with the standard Thrive Loud question, which is, JJ Flizanes, what is your all-time favorite movie?
I have to say The Princess Bride.
Oh, I love The Princess Bride.
I do too. I mean, there's so many things I love about it, and it's just so fun. I mean, I can quote so many different lines from that movie, Andre the Giant. Like, anytime I'm in a crowd of people, I go, "Everybody move!" And I just wonder, does anybody know what I'm quoting? I mean, when I say that, but I think it every time I'm in a crowd and I want to say, "Everybody move!" But that's just my own little joke in my head. So I love Princess Bride. I think it's super fun.
The 2 lines on top of that I love in that movie is obviously inconceivable, which is said over and over and over again. And when the sword fight is taking place on the stairs and all the levels, and they're both smiling, and he goes, "I am also left-handed." I'm also not left-handed, to be correct. Just great stuff within that movie. And actually, if you are interested, there's a phenomenal documentary on the life of Andre the Giant, and they do a lot of features about that movie in there.
I did see parts of that, although I haven't watched it from start to finish, and I would like to.
That man drank more wine than you could ever possibly imagine in your entire life. He was just such a, large giant of a human being. It was quite an interesting thing. But anyway, the follow-up question that I was going to ask, which would be, I guess, a bonus one here. With all of the podcasts that you are on or involved with, what has been your favorite part about podcasting? Is it the interesting guests you have on the program, sharing the absolute topics that you talk about, or learning something new?
I started podcasting as a way for me to catalog all the things I wanted to share that my current clients might not have cared about. And it was also a way for me to test how the world wanted me to show up. I have all these different things I'm interested in, all these things I think are really a part of a balanced living, part of transforming your everything, relationship, body, life. And I'm not sure which one I need to follow. So let me put it out there and see what happens. And when I rebranded everything and separated the 6-day-a-week show into 6 shows, it was a very clear spirit, purpose, and energy, which is the law of attraction spirituality show, was it. And the great thing about that, what I love about how this all happened, was it was a validation that I wouldn't have given myself. It really propelled me into a new space where at my last event, I stood in front of a room full of people, all who came from my podcast, who came from all over the country to come to the event. And I literally said to them, "I'm not an expert in law of attraction." And they all screamed at me, "Yes, you are." And I thought, okay. So it really gave me permission because people are responding. I get fan mail every day. I get amazing stories about how the show is changing people's lives and how grateful they are to have found it, how they share it with everyone they know. And it's not because I need the validation as a person. What I find really fun is that this has changed my life. And so I just want to share it with others. And I love that it's making a difference in other people's lives. And now they're sharing it with others.
I think you have summarized what I speak about all the time, JJ, which is basically the power of connecting and how this medium helps to bring it all together and how wonderful it really can be. So kudos to you for recognizing that and doing such a great job of it too. And thank you for everything that you do on that program because it's pretty good. All of the programs you have. There's so many of them. Dear God. How do you keep up? JJ Plazanes, thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming on Thrive Loud.
Thank you for having me, Lou. It's been a pleasure. I've heard all about you for a very long time, and so I feel very honored that you asked me to be on the show. I'd love to do your chart on the show and do the full-on chart and answer any questions that you or maybe some of your listeners may have. They can write into, and I can do a few very specific things if that's of interest to you. But I appreciate your time and helping to share the message, and hopefully this will inspire somebody today to think a little bit bigger and get out of their comfort zone.
Thanks to all the Thrive Loud listeners out there. Keep thriving onward and upward. And remember, be brief, be bright, be gone.
Hello. My name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die.
Okay, Thrive Loud fans. Well, to make this interview complete, it probably makes the most sense for JJ Plazanes to actually give me a little reading, do a little astrological viewpoint of Lou Diamond. And I think, is that what we're going to do right now, JJ?
It is what we're going to do right now, Lou.
All right. Well, awesome. So tell me, how do we get this going?
Okay. So let me first just say astrology is a very deep and complex thing. It's like cooking and baking in one way. So you have lots of different ingredients, and depending on how you use them will determine different outcomes. And when I look at astrology, I'm looking at just basic ingredients. So for instance, your sun, as we talked about before, is in Virgo. And I did your chart and found out that your moon, that's how you deal with emotion, is in Cancer.
Okay.
So what does that mean? Cancer is a water sign. Cancer is the first of the water signs. It means you're probably very sensitive.
Very true.
It also could mean that you're slightly defensive. When you
maybe I am, maybe I'm not.
Ta-da. No, slightly defensive when you feel that someone you love and respect isn't hearing you or seeing you or judging you or has misinterpreted you. Cancers often feel, this is not an attack on you because you know that you and I don't know each other that well. So it's just one of the things about cancers, like the danger in Cancer is that the Cancer sun sign is that a lot of times cancers feel victimized. So they may often say the phrase like, how could you do that to me? Now, it's more often in women than in men, although I have heard men say that. And I would invite anyone who's listening who has Cancer in their chart to just remember that. So when you come to a place where you feel defensive and you say, how could that person hurt me? How could they do that to me? How come they don't know that I'm upset about this? Like anything that resembles that language whatsoever, just remember that that is only your perspective and it may actually not have anything to do with what's going on.
So just to get some basics on this, obviously I'm a Virgo, which is when I was born. That's where your sun is. And obviously your moon is where the moon is positioned specifically at that time and what constellation it resides in. Is that what it is? Okay. Just to be clear.
This is the recipe for Lou Diamond.
Got it.
All the different ingredients and positions and planets, right? So sun is your Virgo. That is sort of your soul, if you will, your personality. It's like a general, this is who I am. It's your foundation.
Okay.
We talked about Virgo. Virgo's an earth sign. Virgo's in the middle. Virgos are virgins. And the virgin part is a very optimistic, very perfectionistic, likes to follow the rules, very detail oriented, generally optimistic, hardworking, very determined. But at the same time, the shadow side of that can be critical. Analytical, critical of others and of self, a little bit too critical of self, actually, oftentimes, and a rule follower to your detriment. Like if there's a right way to do something, it's almost like you throw the baby out with the bathwater because you're going to follow the directions the way they're written in the exact order for the point of following it correctly, versus that might not be what's necessary, but because Virgos tend to be more perfectionistic, want to do the right thing. Like that's it. That's a value of a Virgo, is to do it right and to be seen and perceived as doing it right.
There's a myriad of IKEA furniture that's been put together in the correct order that it should have.
Oh, I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it. And there's probably no leftover screws.
Never. No.
Right. Exactly. And you actually have Virgo in a couple different placements. You have Virgo in your Mercury, which could indicate that you're super smart. It's a Mercury is a
Notice how
planet.
she said it could indicate. It doesn't necessarily say that I am, but okay.
Well, again, as we digress, I don't know you that well, so I'm not going to say I think you're super smart. This is not
Fair enough.
my interpretation. Mercury is the planet of writing and thinking and speaking. So it's apropos that you have a show and that you're a speaker and that you
Right.
do this, right? So that's very in alignment. Your Mars is also in Virgo, and your Mars is your sexual intimacy planet.
Oh boy.
And just, I'm not going to go too deep into that one, but just know that, so your Mars and it being in Virgo, remember, like I said, Virgo are virgins. That doesn't mean you're not good in bed. It just means idealistically, there's a right way, there's a generosity, there's just like a lot of right things that you should do, and being a provider. So I'm going to say that there's a potential that you're a very generous and providing lover. Of course, I know nothing about that, everybody. So
we'll have a special episode with the one individual who could certainly who can vote on that particularly.
Yes. Right. So those are some of the Virgos in your chart: your Sun, your Mercury, and your Mars. I want to move to your ascendant. Your ascendant and or rising, often called the rising sign, is Scorpio. Scorpio is another water sign. So what's really interesting is, while you are a Virgo sun sign, which again is earth, you are surrounded by water above and below. You've got your moon, which is water, and you have your rising sign, which is water. And back when I started my podcast and I did a little astrology show, I did the disclaimer that I'm not an astrologer, and I went through all of the things that I'm talking about now, and I explained everything, and then I had an astrologer write to me and say, you did a really good job. The only thing that I'm going to correct you on is the ascendant. The ascendant is actually very important. The ascendant is what you grow into in the second half of your life. So you become more of your ascendant in your personality than you do your sun sign.
Interesting.
So what's interesting, because Doug's a Scorpio too. So I find it interesting that you guys are buddies in that, because he's been growing into his Scorpio-ness, and you are more Scorpio as time goes on. And what Scorpio is in the water sign line, it's number 2. And every element has 3 positions. I call it first, second, and third stage. And the reason why I make them stages is because everybody evolves. So Cancer is the least evolved water sign.
Okay.
And have Cancer in your moon. So just remember that when dealing with your emotions, that your propensity, your tendency is to think of like a 5-year-old or a 10-year-old. Like, I'm not trying to make it sound bad, but in terms of, you don't have as many layers of processing. So it's a little bit more innocent in ways, which is why I said in the beginning, a little bit potentially defensive at first.
Okay.
And can be a little bit victimized in saying that, but Cancers are very, very generous and loving and attentive, and are great parents, and are great homebodies, and also love to travel, which is funny, and love to cook. So there's a lot of really great, interesting things about Cancers. So water signs are awesome because you're in touch with your feelings. Your Scorpio, now that's the middle water sign. And the difference between Scorpio and Cancer is Scorpio gets into the second stage, a little bit more developed, a little bit older on that sort of soul level. And Scorpios are watchers. So they sit back and they observe. They're very careful with their emotions. Cancers, not so much. Cancers are not careful. And Pisces are not very careful. Scorpios, however, will protect themselves by assessing a situation from afar, and will sort of sit back and be a part of the crowd, but watch, learn, and study, and only be vulnerable, and only share, and only show what's important to you after you've identified and analyzed that you're safe in the situation. So
very fascinating.
So
that would be the one that I would say probably is the least representative of me, but interesting to hear those different pieces.
You are growing into this though. So
Maybe.
I'm not done with Scorpios, because Scorpio is also the most sexual sign.
Oh boy.
Scorpio is also the most sexual sign. Okay. Whatever that means to you could mean all kinds of different things. Okay. So the other thing about Scorpios is that they tend to, they cut people off. They don't like, so if someone hurts you, it could appear that you have less patience for people, or might want to be vindictive. I'm not saying that would be you, because the Virgo and you would never let you be vindictive. Actually, you may have thoughts of vindication, like you've too much Virgo, too much of the good guy. I'm going to do the right thing. The Scorpio might come up and say, I want to punch that guy in the face because he hurt me, but you probably wouldn't do it because of how much Virgo you have in you.
Interesting.
So,
yeah.
So anyway, but the ascendant is, and the Scorpio ascendant is what you're growing into. Okay. So Virgo's also, back to Virgo, because you have so much of it. Virgo, every sign sort of has their phrase and their motto. And for Virgos, it's I produce. Again, just sort of speaks to the always in motion, always creating something, always putting something out there, love to create, love to produce, whatever. For you, it could be content and podcast and whatever else interests you.
And a lot of stuff I do for my clients too. That's very true. I'm constantly producing and helping them connect with their brand. So yeah, perfect. Great.
Another positive and it can be positive and negative. The positive side is also very cerebral for Virgos, again, and that sort of linear thinking, a little bit more left brain in that way for Virgos. And like I said, you have a bunch of them. And the downside of that sometimes is that you're too in your head and not necessarily attached and connected to your body. Now, you have Scorpio in another position in your Venus, and that's how you deal with love. And so between your Virgo Mars, which is your sexual intimacy planet, plus Venus is how you deal with love in Scorpio, and Scorpio being a sex planet, I'm going to say a very lucky wife. I'm just going to say that you're probably a really attentive, good lover, and also romantic. Like, I think you look like on paper the whole package. So in that area. So yes, let's get your wife on here. I'd love to hear if I'm right on this.
I think we just found the part that we're going to open the show with as we take a segment.
Perfect. Well, there's lots of ego stroking happening here today. Super smart, good in the bedroom. Okay. Very producing. Okay. But now I want to go into sort of one last planet that I'm going to actually read from a book about, because I'm going to talk about the book. It's called Astrology for the Soul by Jan Spiller. This one planet, this is your true node, otherwise known as your north node, and yours is in Pisces. Okay. What the north node position is your lessons that you're here to learn in this lifetime. So it's specific to, obviously, if anyone, we haven't even talked about past lives, but in this specific lifetime, like this literally lays out for you some of the potential challenges and opportunities and trajectory that your life might be on. Now, I'm going to read part of it, and I'm going to guarantee that some of it's going to be super accurate and some of it's not. How things get, again, I'm thinking from your position of all these Virgos, some of it might not be concrete enough for you to see right now. And that's where the balance of using the other parts of you. If I'm looking at your chart, Virgo, you're pretty balanced on the water and the air. The water and the water,
the
earth, right?
Earth signs, right.
Right. So that's really good. Good in terms of, well, you could be muddy sometimes, earth, right? Because water and earth make mud. So you have the opportunity for balance. And I guess if without knowing you, with just looking at your chart, I would just invite you, in case you don't, because you're probably really comfortable, also as a man, probably really comfortable with all the cerebral things and probably a little less comfortable with all the emotional things. So I would invite you to utilize that balance of the earth and the water to get in touch with your emotions and to use the Virgo part of you to understand emotions in a different way, so that you can learn how to be vulnerable and process and express and utilize your emotions for how powerful they are, and not to necessarily just overanalyze them and not feel them. So feeling is really important for you. Have a ton of water in you. Okay. So Pisces is a water sign, and your north node is in Pisces. So there are 3 sections I'm going to go over real quick.
Okay.
The first one is called The Attributes to Develop. Work in these areas can help uncover hidden gifts and talents. So this isn't saying that you're not good at this. You may be good at every single one of these right now, or you may not be. So just know that this is about strengthening all of these things to make your hidden gifts and talents more working for you. Okay. So number 1 is being non-judgmental.
That's fair.
Right. Which is like the opposite of Virgo.
Right.
Okay. Number 2 is compassion.
Okay.
Number 3 is surrendering anxiety to a higher power. Number 4, and I will say, just before we even go anywhere, the number 1 thing about Pisces true node, is about that relationship, about you and a higher power, about your spirituality, about to trust in something bigger than you. That's kind of one of the biggest aspects of your true node in this lifetime. That's what Pisces is all about. Okay. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Number 4 is freeing the mind through meditation and self-reflection.
Okay.
Number 5 is focusing on the spiritual pathway.
Gotcha.
Number 6 is trusting in positive outcomes.
Okay.
The next one is acknowledging connection with the universe.
That one I like a lot. I like that part.
And the last one is welcoming change.
So that's interesting because those last two are very much, well, one, I'm obviously all about connection, but that welcoming change, I'd say over the last 4 to 5 years, I've been much more open to different things in the way I work, in what I understand, and to bring it home to exactly what you're summarizing, to this stuff, to stuff that might have previously been called woo-wooey, but actually has some concrete value to things that you can use as a guiding principle. So that's actually pretty cool.
Good. Okay.
That was awesome.
Good. Okay. So this next section is called Tendencies to Leave Behind.
All right.
Working to reduce the influence of these tendencies can help make life easier and more enjoyable. And again, they're not saying that you have all of these. So let's not interpret it. This is a list of things that if you don't have it, great. And if you have it, then it's just something to pay attention to that doesn't serve you. So number 1 is hyper anxiety reactions. Number 2 is overanalysis. Number 3 is obsessive worry. Number 4 is exaggerating the importance of details.
Interesting.
Number 5 is critical first reactions. It goes along with Virgo so well. It's interesting that you've chosen all this position for your life. The next one is fault finding, making others wrong. The next one is excessive anxiety over making mistakes. And by the way, before there's 3 more, but it's such an interesting because Virgos are about, right? I said Virgos are perfectionistic. So this is the yin and the yang, basically. I mean, it's like they're the same thing. Pisces and Virgos on the chart are opposites of each other. So for instance, I'm a sun Pisces. So you and I, basically, if we just looked at those planets, all of your strengths are my weaknesses and all of my strengths are your weaknesses. And we balance each other out energetically, and we are completely opposite in that way. And usually in a male-female situation, and a masculine-feminine, it's a good balance. It's harder when you have, let's say, if you and a Pisces man who has the same masculine-feminine balance as you. Like, you'd repel each other. There have been a lot of women in my life that I've met that are Virgos that I instantly don't like. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't figure out why. And I thought I'd analyze myself, and I'd realize they were just Virgos, which meant I had I didn't resonate with them at all. There was no energetic connection. There was nothing. I felt nothing. And it was the opposite. So the fact that you're a Pisces true node and a Virgo moon or Virgo rising, Virgo sun. Let's get this right, JJ. Virgo sun is really, it's like a double whammy of this lesson for you of fault finding, making others wrong, not having critical first reactions, obsessive worry, over analysis, right? That kind of stuff. So the last 3, good. So perfectly for Virgos, being Mr. or Ms. Perfect.
Interesting.
Staying in unpleasant situations. And the last one is inflexibility.
Interesting, because they're almost the mirror of the other side of what you went through before. But that's pretty, as opposed to being open to change and all this versus this one, the other. So
right.
Wow.
Okay, one more little section. And then
yes. Okay, cool.
And this may or may not, although based on everything I'm reading, I would think without knowing this has to show up somewhere in your life. The Achilles heel, the trap to avoid, and the bottom line for this position, the true node in Pisces. The Achilles heel, Pisces North Node people need to be aware of is their compulsive need for order. Quote, my survival depends on everything being in order according to my view of how life ought to be and how others ought to behave. And it can lead them into a trap of unending search for perfection. So I'm going to stop there because it really, again, there's more to this, but I just want to give you the brief overview with the focus being on your sort of lessons in this lifetime of your true node in Pisces, the Virgo sun that you have and how that plays out, and the balance that you have with the water and the earth, which can work really well for you when you utilize both sides for their positives.
So let's get this in quick summary. I've got a good well balance across the board. It could get muddy. I'm dynamite in the sack and I'm brilliant. That's all I took out of all this.
There you go. It's however you want to interpret it. So see, you're going to think her reading was perfect because look at all these things that were said about me. Of course, I'm going to say this was good, but
I'm just playing.
I know. But on a, so how much of that felt accurate?
A lot of it. Look, all kidding aside, a lot of those things they talked about, the qualities of what Virgo are, hit home. Some were not, but I've always, one of the things that I think is great about all this stuff, and it like getting any lessons or goals, right? I've always said, well, if you read someone's horoscope each day, I'd be like, dude, that can apply to anybody or can go in any direction. But I also think it's what people, if you understand what their core is and what they're about and where they can change and adapt, I think that's the perspective that you're providing that's actually kind of neat. And it's almost like you're given a script to try to do something in life or whatever it is, or you're given a playbook, like these are all the different things, but it's not sticking to them word by word. It's utilizing them as a base and then kind of adapting them into something else. I think that's true about all these different things that you can learn. And interestingly, that whole part about seeking a higher power and or trying to go into the parts about meditation, that stuff to me has been something that I've always been curious about. I think curiosity has been something that's led me to this show, and being able to communicate with all this and to take all this information in has certainly led to a more willingness to be open to try new things. And I think for anyone who's listening, whether this is just my little analysis here on me, which we got to thank JJ for and giving this to me, it's go have it, check it out yourself and see how it relates to you and how it can actually help you with all the things that you do well. So that's kind of a neat thing. I think that's what's great about this. So we got to thank JJ for this, right? This is awesome.
You're welcome. Well, let me tell you how to best utilize this. So that
Please
was
do.
just a very short overview. Where I think astrology is most powerful is using it in sort of getting your goals met or how to communicate or in relationships. So if you're having an issue, let's say I do an astrological health analysis. If we're looking at what's the right program for me, how should I be working if someone's not able to lose weight or they don't get motivated for exercise or they have poor self-care or whatever. It's looking at how to interpret things, what things to choose that are more in your energy that makes sense to you. It's how I could communicate with you. Like all my clients, I do their charts just so that I know how to talk to them.
Right.
Because I understand what they value and I'll know who I can talk to in an emotional way and who I need to explain things in a scientific way to. I can make recommendations to people who, for you as a Virgo, if I gave you a list of things to do in the order in which I wanted you to do them, you do them because that's how you're built. But if I give someone who's a Cancer, who has a lot more water in them, that they're going to look at me and say, no way, I'm not going to follow that. Like, I don't feel like it. So astrology is really a great bridge between people in terms of understanding who works for you, understanding your partner, understanding your children, understanding how you interpret information. And that's how, to me, astrology really makes us more compassionate to ourselves and others, because otherwise we're all like, there's no normal. If you understand that you have a tendency for something, like I'm pretty gray in most of my planets. Like I can see things from multiple perspectives. Most of my planets are in the third stage, but I have one planet that's the very first sign, Aries, in my Venus. And for a long time, I thought, why am I so impatient when it comes to certain relationships, whether like I have to have the definition of if we're together or we're not together. Are we dating or we're not dating? And I don't care which one it is, just tell me the answer. And I watched myself be super impatient. And like, I thought, what's wrong with me? And I looked at my chart and I thought, oh, because your Venus is an Aries. You have no patience. Aries people are very impatient. They're very black and white. They're very duality in terms of they need an answer in one camp or the other. So it just can validate some of your behaviors and make you less judgmental on yourself, and then give you tools to help yourself get to where you want to go.
JJ, this was awesome, educational, insightful, ego building, boosting, and also and everything else that you get asked for. But thank you for providing this and sharing this with me. Thrive Out listeners are probably either all turned off right now or just nodding their heads going, man, what did I just listen to? Thanks again, JJ.
You're welcome, Lou.